Most people believe sales is about convincing. They're wrong. The moment you try to convince someone, you've already lost. You've signaled weakness, desperation, a need for their approval. And in the theatre of human psychology, desperation is the scent of prey. The 99% enter every sales interaction as beggars. They smile too much. They explain too much. They offer discounts before they're even asked. They operate from a position of subservience, hoping the customer will grant them the privilege of a sale. The 1% operate from a completely different reality. They don't convince. They architect. They don't chase. They attract. They don't hope for the sale. They create the conditions where the sale becomes inevitable. This is not about helping people. That's the lie sold to you by those who want you compliant and weak. This is about power dynamics, psychological warfare, the hidden architecture of influence that separates predators from prey in the marketplace. What you're about to learn is not taught in business schools. It's not mentioned in sales seminars, because the elite don't share the mechanisms of their dominance. Until now. Niccolo Machiavelli understood something the masses refuse to accept. Power is not given. It is taken through perception. In The Prince, he wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Most misunderstand this. They think it means tyranny. It means respect. It means being needed, not wanted. When you are wanted, you are optional. When you are needed, you are essential. The 99% make themselves wanted. They please, they accommodate, they lower their price to match the customer's comfort. The 1% make themselves needed. They create psychological dependency. They position themselves as the only solution to a problem the customer didn't even know they had. Sales is not about your product. It never was. It's about perceived value. And perceived value is controlled by one thing: your frame. The person who controls the frame controls the outcome. In every sales interaction, there are only two positions: the one who seeks validation and the one who grants it. The 99% seek validation from their customers. Do you like this? Is the price okay? Can I do anything else for you? The 1% grant validation. You're the right fit for this. I can work with you. This is what's available. See the difference? One is begging permission to exist in the customer's world. The other is granting permission for the customer to exist in theirs. This is the reframe. This is where power lives. Law 1. The law of detachment. The 99% need the sale. The customer feels it, smells it, uses it. Desperation is repulsive at a biological level. It signals low status, low options, low value. The 1% are detached from the outcome, not because they don't care about money, but because they understand leverage. When you need something more than the other person, you have no leverage. When you're willing to walk away, you hold all the cards. This is not a tactic. This is a mindset forged in abundance, real or constructed. The customer must believe, no, they must feel that you have other options, better options, that their rejection costs you nothing. Because the moment you become too available, too eager, too accommodating, your value collapses. Scarcity creates desire. Abundance creates indifference, master detachment, or remain enslaved to every negotiation. Law 2. The architecture of insecurity. Every human being is walking around with a gap, a void, an insecurity, a fear they won't admit. The 99% try to fill that gap with features and benefits. This product has X, Y, and Z. The customer doesn't care. The 1% identify the psychological wound and position themselves as the only antidote. A man doesn't buy a luxury watch to tell time. He buys it to signal status, to prove he's no longer the broke kid he once was, to silence the voice that says he's not enough. A woman doesn't hire the expensive consultant for their expertise. She hires them to feel certain, to outsource the fear of making the wrong decision. You must become a psychologist, a hunter of insecurity. What does this person need to prove? What do they fear losing? What identity are they trying to construct? Find the wound, then become the cure. Not through manipulation, through clarity. You're not creating the insecurity, it already exists. You're simply the first person honest enough to acknowledge it and offer resolution. Law 3. Controlled scarcity. Machiavelli knew that what is always available becomes worthless. Attention, time, access, these are your currencies. The 99% give them away freely. They respond immediately. They rearrange their schedule. They offer anytime availability. This signals low demand. And low demand signals low value. The 1% understand that scarcity is not about being rude. It's about being strategic. You don't answer every call. You don't respond to every email within minutes. You don't offer unlimited revisions or open-ended access. Not because you're lazy, because you're expensive. Because your time is allocated to those who respect its value. When someone has to wait for your response, they assign you higher status in their mind. When they have to qualify to work with you, they perceive you as exclusive. When they sense that others want what you offer, their desire intensifies. Control the supply of yourself, artificially if necessary, because abundance without scarcity is just noise. Law 4. Dominating the frame. Whoever asks the questions controls the conversation. The 99% enter sales interactions answering questions. Defending their price. Justifying their value. They operate in the customer's frame. And in the customer's frame, they will always lose. The 1% set the frame from the first interaction. They ask, what are you trying to accomplish? Why is that important to you? What happens if you don't solve this? What have you tried before? Every question is a tool of control, not manipulation, calibration. You're diagnosing whether they're qualified to receive what you offer. You're positioning yourself as the authority, the selector, the gatekeeper. The customer begins to sell themselves to you. They begin to prove they're worthy of your solution. And when someone convinces themselves, no objection remains. Frame control is not about talking more. It's about directing the current. The river doesn't shout. It simply flows where it was designed to go. Be the river. Consider the luxury watch again. Rolex does not advertise features. They advertise status, legacy, the feeling of having arrived. They don't chase customers. They create waiting lists. They don't lower prices. They raise barriers. The customer doesn't think, I need this watch. They think, I need to be the kind of person who owns this watch. That's the architecture. Or consider the therapist who is booked 3 months out versus the one with open slots tomorrow. Same credentials, same training, different perceived value. Because the one with no availability is in demand. And demand signals worth. These are not accidents. These are strategies built on understanding human hierarchy and the psychology of desire. Here is the cold truth they don't want you to know. The marketplace is not a democracy. It's a hierarchy. And in every hierarchy, there are those who lead and those who follow. Those who set terms and those who accept them. The 1% sales mindset is not about being liked. It's about being respected, needed, irreplaceable, It's about walking into every interaction knowing your value is not up for debate. It's about understanding that influence is not given. It's taken through the quiet, ruthless application of psychological principles most people are too afraid to acknowledge. This path is not for everyone. It requires detachment when your instinct is to please. It requires patience when your bills demand urgency. It requires the willingness to lose deals, walk away from customers, and operate from a frame of power even when you feel powerless. But once you cross this threshold, you never return. You stop begging, you stop convincing, you stop hoping, you start architecting. And in a world full of beggars, the architect is king. The choice is yours. But understand this, the 99% will always need someone to buy from. The 1% decide who gets to buy. Choose your position carefully. Because in the end, power doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about your frame.